Right then, let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football podcast, proudly powered by MK Battery for the 24-25 season. MK Battery's impact goes far beyond supplying the batteries that power our chairs. They've played a crucial role in developing the sport's infrastructure, supporting grassroots initiatives and elite competitions across the country. Their ongoing commitment to inclusion, innovation and growth continues to strengthen Powerchair Football at every level, and we're proud to have them back in the podcast this season. This episode, we're recapping all the drama from Gameweek 4 of the Optegra Championship, a crucial round with major implication as teams jostled for positions heading into the final weekend of the season. We'll also be looking ahead to what promises to be that season-defining weekend scheduled Saturday the 24th and Sunday the 25th of May. My name is Ryan Sipple, and joining me today is one of the standout players in the championship and mastermind behind the WFA Scoreline app. Mr. Jack Humphries, how are you?
I'm not too bad, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. So in today's episode, as mentioned, we'll be breaking things down club by club, starting at the top of the table and working our way down to 12th. Along the way, we'll shine a light on the standout players, highlight form, preview key battles to watch in the final round, where it's all to play for, with both promotion and relegation potentially on the line. Just to add some context for new listeners or anyone tracking the table, as we typically encourage you to do so, the top two teams in the championship will earn automatic promotion to the 2025-26 National League Premiership. Meanwhile, the third place finisher will go into a one-off playoff match against the team that finishes 10th in the Premiership, and that one is scheduled for Saturday, June the 14th, and the tie will decide the final spot in next season's top flight. Lastly, a quick word of thanks to Optegra, the nationwide specialist in eye healthcare and proud title sponsors of our National League for 2024-25. Their support has been instrumental in the continued growth of Powerchair Football, helping to raise the visibility, professionalism and overall standards of the competition. And with that in mind, Jack, you wear many hats when it comes to Powerchair Football, but from the perspective of a player in the thick of the action, how have you found this season and the competition?
I think this season's been absolutely so competitive, and the championship especially. It's been so close. You know, there's some of the teams that you go out and you think, oh, they might be a winnable team. They're actually putting a real fight, and it's so interesting to see from a player. You know, every game is a challenge now, and it's really good to see the level of Powerchair Football up there. You know, everybody's on a similar level and everyone's fighting, which is fantastic to see, really.
I think it's an understatement, isn't it? The level of competition, not just in the Championship, but the Premiership as well. Not long recorded Gameweek 4 recap from the Premiership, and everything you've just said there regarding the Championship is something that's shared with the Premiership. The level of competition, the fact that no games are guaranteed 3 points anymore, whereas in seasons gone by that could have been the case. We also commended the work you've done with the Scoreline app in the Premiership recap, and how it's been an absolute game changer for many different reasons, from a commentary point of view, referencing it when analysing things for the podcast, as well as how, as teams prepare for games, you've obviously been the key driver and the creator of it. What innovations have you got planned, maybe for the next 6, 12, maybe even 18 months?
There's quite a bit that we want to add. I mean, it's quite funny you said that. I've literally got the app open in front of me, ready for the podcast today.
It's always the way.
It is. We've got quite a bit planned. Obviously, it's been a year in the making of getting to where we are now. It's probably been behind the scenes over just over 2 years. In terms of we've had to get the kind of data systems. If you've seen referees with iPads and the commentators upstairs with the iPads, we've had to build these systems. So we've got kind of the infrastructure there, so we can build and go forward. In going back to what you were saying, Ryan, about future developments, I think we've got a lot planned. I know I've got a Trello board of about six different major updates that are coming to the app. One of those being, well, quite recently, hopefully in time for Derby, we should have this, which would be a prediction feature. So
Yep.
if you are around at the World Cup, you'll know that you could log on to the prediction website and predict who you think's going to win the game, predict the score, and it'll show on the live streams. So we're planning to do that as part of the app, as well as add more interactivity. So during a game, you might see little polls that come up on the screen. You can go and vote on, for example, who you think's going to score next, or the predicted score at halftime, and things like that, just to add a bit of extra kind of engagement with each match. Um, we're hopefully going to add some more statistics and insights. So we're compiling at the minute. It's going to take us a while to get through the historical data, but we're planning to add all of Powerchair Football history, all the Powerchair Football historical data. So
Wow.
what that allows us to do is you can see the table as it was 10 years ago, see the teams that were in it, um, see, top scorers and teams that were doing well 10 years ago or something like that. Whereas we can also then do complex analysis and say how a team's done over time. So if a team did well, you know, we can see with it at the top of the table how many times have they won the league and things like that. We do such insightful kind of analysis. Further on that, we're looking at adding further analysis. So we're actually doing some experiments at the minute behind the scenes where we're trying to do artificial intelligence on Powerchair Football. So trying to understand the game on an even deeper level by first of all doing uh, having a GoPro that will film the game, and we can track players and the ball and things like that. But we can first of all improve our live streaming workflow. But then second of all, we can hopefully crunch the numbers and come up with insightful things like heat maps, passes, shots, and things like that. Things that I think will really, enrich the game and also help players and coaches, when they go back and analyze games. And I think, yeah, we've got quite a lot of plans. That's just a taste of what we've got coming for the Scoreline app. I know that there's going to be a fair few updates soon, so stay tuned for those.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Certainly from the engagement point of view and making the Scoreline app more interactive. I know it's something I always try and do when commentating. I'm encouraging interactions and comments and predictions in the YouTube chat because obviously that aids our algorithms and our sport and our fixtures being pumped out to newer audiences. But it's just really exciting to hear the innovations that are planned, and I know everyone's blown away with the functionality at the moment. And the best way I described it on the previous podcast is it's up there and akin to what mainstream sports are currently getting and you're seeing with the Premier League. So if we can match that and mirror that for Powerchair Football, and I know Alex, you're never going to stop. You're always looking forward and what's next and what innovations can better increase the user experience. It's so exciting. So long may it continue. So, as said, regular listeners know we typically do these recaps. We'll go through each team from 1st to 12th, talk about how they've fared and what's to come. And for that, it brings me nicely onto the same team that's been at the top of the standings since February, Muscle Warriors. Gameweek 4 of the competition, they secured 7 points from a possible 12 and sit on 47 points overall. 5 point margin over GBG Knights in second. Give me your thoughts on them from game week 4, Jack.
I think Muscle Warriors showing why they're a top team. They're a very tough team to beat. They've got a lot of quality, a big squad, and I think when you watch them play, they play well. And obviously, we played Muscle Warriors 3-1. It was a very difficult game. They're very difficult to break down. Um, and it just again shows you the quality of this league when you've got um, all the players like Shea Murray and Rickenshaw, they can bring that absolute quality. And when like Ricken's on the ball, he just controls the game. So if you're going in it as a team, it's almost how do you stop these players from playing, and how do you deal with them as a team? So Muscle Warriors, I think maybe they'd be slightly disappointed with the 0-0 against Hull and East Yorkshire, but like you said, Ryan, the quality of this league, you don't know quite what's going to happen. You can go into a game and think, oh, this is it's a winnable game for us considering where we are in the table. But you go into a game and it's a 0-0. You lose 2 points. So I have a feeling they might be a bit gutted about that. But again, another strong performance from them. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think they're pragmatic. I think it's kind of a simple, effective style of football that's built on consistency, and we've seen that across the season. Relatively speaking, and I have to emphasise the word relative, they did dip slightly below the levels they produced across the 3 weekends prior. So 7 points from a possible 12, it says it right there. 5 points they were unable to secure, but with that they stayed top of the table. Them clean sheets and the controlled performances in which they did secure points helped, and they were also aided by results elsewhere with GBG Knights dropping points. But for me, I said it after the Premiership recap, the hallmark of a champion is consistently performing across a full season. In our case, that's 22 league games. And heading into game week 5, they're still the team that everyone's chasing. Defensively, they have been absolutely outstanding. 16 shutouts, so 89% of their games so far this season have been a clean sheet. So they're the most organised defensive unit in the division by some distance. You've alluded to the control that Rickenshaw brings in. I'll also include Jacob Vickers in that conversation. He controls the tempo, dictating the play with composure. Personally, I think I would like to see Jacob given a bit more time centrally, whether he's in that role, whenever he's in that role, sorry. I just think the team's ticks a little bit better. They're a little bit braver. But irrelevant of that, Ricken and Jacob both having their best seasons to date. Shea Murray, the creative force, was unable to add to his 10 assists in game week 4, which might explain that slight dip in terms of their attacking sharpness. But again, this is relative. They're the ones that have set this expectation now, and any deviations or dips below that, we're going to pick up on it. And when we're coming into the business end of the tournament, that's when you have to look at them fine margins. You have to pick up on slight weaknesses and see how you can and will improve them. You've played them twice this season. What was it like to play them? Because they're just a different outfit this season. It's so, I don't think it's unfair to say that they wouldn't have been title considerations prior to the season kicking off, just because they've been a middle of the pack competitor for so long, and they saw so many key players depart them in the off season.
yeah, absolutely. They're such a force when you play against them. I know our game, um, although it was a 3-1, and we had a bit of a defensive mishap with two goals that we look back and we go, what we could have done better there. But that's a team. You've got to take those chances. If it's a bit of defence away, you've got to take that chance. And they were taking chances, maybe less so this weekend than they have done previously. But like you say, defensively strong with Hannah Hindley again. Hannah obviously moving to Muscle Warriors this season from us from last season, from Leeds Dynamos. Hannah was great last season defensively, and this season again, the control she gets defensively can really, almost make you relaxed as well when you've got that kind of defensive, reassurance. So I think that's this season. Like you said, they maybe lost a few players, but I think they've gained a bit of getting in the likes of Hannah Hindley, and players are constantly improving. Rickinshaw has had a very good season. So yeah,
Yeah, and also I want to shine a light on Stanley Ball and George Shippey. These are two players in their debut seasons competing in the National League, and both have had a real positive impact and are stars for the future. Stanley Ball, 5 goals, 5 assists, so he's in double digits now with regards to goal contributions. And George Shippey, even more impressive, so 6 goals, 8 assists. So much to look forward to, but they're going to want to get it over the line. We was both present in Liverpool yesterday, Jack, and I had a conversation with Jacob Vickers, who happened to also be there at the Pathfinders event we was present at, and I said to him, relatively speaking, you've had a little slip up in Gameweek 4, and to the fact where technically it's not necessarily in their hands. They can obviously control the table and the outcome with their results, but when we get onto GBG Knights, with their more favourable goal difference, should GBG Knights go on to win all of their remaining games, their last of which comes against Muscle Warriors, there is a potential there for things to switch up in the very last game of the season. So yeah, spoke to Jacob Vickers and said, just keep your eye on the ball. Don't let them in at the last possible chance. So he's assured me that won't be the case. But game week 5, relatively speaking, on paper, when you reference the standings, they play Bournemouth, they play Manchester City, they play Manchester United before that potential title decider against GBG Knights. Should GBG Knights drop points prior to that final game, Muscle Warriors could be crowned champions. But a huge day and a huge showdown. It's going to be exciting, isn't it?
oh, I can't wait. It's going to be excellent, I think.
So yeah, congratulations to Muscle Warriors. As mentioned, they've been top of the table since February. So they'll want to stay there and ensure that come May 25th, they are lifting that trophy. So that brings us very nicely on to GBG Knights now. Second in the standings. They've got a game in hand over Muscle Warriors. So should they win that, they will lessen the points difference between them to just 2. So it shows just how close it is. Like Muscle Warriors, they secured 7 points from a possible 12, dropping points via draws with Teesside Steel and Manchester United, and they remain right in the thick of it. Still only 1 defeat all season, and a goal difference that shows just how dangerous they are. Give me your thoughts on GBG Knights, both from game week 4 and the season as a whole.
Yeah, again, another team where, like you said previously, it's hard to go into a season and think who's going to be at the top with the championship because there's such quality. It's really difficult to say, oh, they're going to be at the top, or because the table moves around so much, and so many almost upsets happen. It's hard to keep track of. But GBG Knights, again, a great team. They've obviously had history under a different name from previous seasons, from Nomad
Yeah.
Knights, and rebranded as GBG Knights. But yeah, like you said, again, it's the consistency they have. And again, this weekend, a few draws, 2 draws that maybe didn't quite go their way. Maybe they could have got a goal to seal the deal to get the extra 4 points there, but they did well to get a win against Man City and Villa. So I think that adds to their kind of portfolio this season on the consistency that they can get. And I think maybe if they can win the games like the Man United and the even against Steel, if they could have got another goal, they could have certainly been um, challenging for the top spot with Muscle Warriors. And like you said, if they win all their games next weekend, they'll be at that they'll be in the top spot. And I think that just kind of shows their quality. They've been consistent. They've been really like a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, they are a frightening looking outfit, averaging 3.35 5 goals per game in the Championship this season, which is far superior to any other challenger. They pair that with 17 clean sheets across their 17 games. So not only are they scoring nearly 3.5 goals a game, they're keeping a 71% clean sheet rate. And that's why you're seeing them boast a plus 55 goal difference, 24 goals better off than Muscle Warriors. So if they are to match one another on points come season's end, they will lift the title. So it's almost like a point advantage that GBG Knights have just because of that goal difference and how similarly matched they are. They seem to have the same points at the conclusion of every game week, and that's why with that game in hand, it lessens it to just 1 or 2. I have to highlight some of their players. George Holloway continues to be absolutely ruthless, racking up 24 goals this season across both the league and the cup, 20 of which in the league, 4 of which in the cup. So that's an all-time record for goals in a single season, which was previously a title attributed to at the time. So an incredible achievement. Oscar Smedley, if you've got any thoughts, please share them. But he's, for me, been one of the standout players of the entire Championship. And this is his first ever season competing at this level. That is just remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is great. Like you said, George Holloway, he's one of the top goal scorers. I think he is the top goal scorer this season. And again, in the assists category, Oscar Smedley, top top assists. That
Yeah.
those two together, have really made that team so dangerous. And George Holloway again with more assists. Single-handedly, those two players, are causing so much damage against teams. And I think when you've got that quality like George Holloway and Oscar Smedley, who's just coming through as well, kind of it's his first season, like you say, it can really be difficult uh, to defend against. So, and I think it again shows to the quality of players coming through and the development of Powerchair football. We go on about the championship, the level being quite, everybody's playing quite a good standard of football this season, and Oscar Smedley coming through, it's really just highlighting that the game is growing and players are developing at astonishing rates. And I think it's incredible to see from a player and a fan of the sport. You see teams that come through and do that. It's incredible, and players.
Yeah, I mean, back on Oscar Smedley, I think you said it, 18 assists and 9 goals. So he's going to be knocking on the door of 35 goal contributions come season end if he matches the levels he's shown in the first 4 weekends in game week 5. But a clear leader for the next generation, and we've got him on the Regional Emergent Talent Programme at the moment, and he's a shining light of that. So without putting too much pressure on him, if he carries on those levels, there's a potential England star right there, and a player we haven't yet spoken about, but one that's so crucial to the way they play, the way they set up, is Kai Shah. I've said it on several occasions, one of the most technically gifted players in the whole division, and he's now in double digits for both goals and assists, 11 goals and 11 assists. So his teammates are clearly thriving off that, and his guidance as kind of a player coach. So it's all to play for. They can still influence it. They can still lift that trophy. I have no doubt that is the ultimate aspiration, and anything below that will be seen as a disappointment, even if they are likely to be promoted at season's end automatically. They have a busier run-in than Muscle Warriors. So 5 games to Muscle Warriors 4, in which they play Sale United, yourself in Leeds Dynamos, Nottingham Forest, Villa Rockets Lions, and then, of course, Muscle Warriors on the final day. So it's a lot of games in a short space of time. They'll need to manage that energy, that focus. And if they get through those first 4 games in maximum or near maximum points, it sets up a epic final showdown for the title. And as a commentator for Powerchair Football in England, I have to say it carefully, because if there's one thing I've learned is that the phenomena of curse of the commentator is a very real thing. So I'll proceed with caution, but based on everything we've seen, barring a catastrophic collapse in Game Week 5, both Muscle Warriors and GBG Knights will be playing their football in the Premiership next season, and it's no less than they deserve. Their consistency, their quality, and the standards they've set all season have been outstanding. And it's important not to underestimate the impact that has on the teams around them too. By setting the bar so high, I think they've pushed everyone else to raise their games, players, coaches and support staff. So both clubs and everyone associated to them are a real credit to the sport, and the advert that they have provided the Championship this season has been amazing.
I think what's quite interesting as well, you mentioned it about Kai Shah being that kind of coach and leader. And I think what's quite interesting as well for younger players coming through, like we were talking about Oscar Smedley, I think having that role model as a player can be
For
so
sure.
useful when you're playing. And I think that's probably why he's doing so well. One of the reasons he's doing so well is he's got that mentor in Kajar. He's got the coach, it can be, I don't want to disrespect any kind of coaches that don't play the game, but it can be more powerful as a player when your coach has the experience, has a lot of experience, talking from myself personally, at least Dynamos with Lewis Harris. It can be incredible to have that experience and the knowledge from somebody who's played the sport, and I think that's what can create that talent that you see in Oscar Smedley, and I think it's incredible for the sport, and it's great that we've got that.
I think that's something you see across all teams, whether that's Premiership or Championship. There's some quality, experienced players. We're going to come on to Teesside Steel in a moment, but there's several young players in that squad that are being nurtured by the more experienced heads, and you need that balance. And you need them role models, you need them leaders. And what's so nice for me, you're obviously very close with Lewis Harris, is seeing quality Premiership proven players, sometimes England internationals, then turn their attentions to coaching as well and nurturing the next generation. If we're just referencing the Championship standing specifically, Villa Rockets Lions are coached by Brad Bates, Leeds Dynamos are coached by Lewis Harris, Sale United are coached by Jake Hudson. So these are quality players that are looking to give their expertise and guidance to their teams and the players, and it's so good to see. And GBG Knights are at the top of that, and you're seeing Oscar Smedley specifically benefit so much from that guidance of Kai Shah.
Absolutely, it's incredible.
Couldn't agree more. So congratulations GBG Knights, go and have a strong weekend. You've got a 7-point gap over Teesside Steel in third, so automatic promotion is almost certainly in your hands, but you will want that title. You will want to have that medal placed around your neck at the end of season awards. So make it an absolute incredible advert and showcase for Powerchair Football, and I will make sure that that final game and match up between yourselves and Muscle Warriors, I'll be commentating, so I'll be here for the drama. Next in the standings in third, Teesside Steel, 18 games played, 35-point accumulation. I think people are starting to really take notice of Teesside Steel now. They're now on a 14-game unbeaten run in the division, which is the longest by some distance. That's obviously paired with the fact that they've only lost one all season, and I think that came in game week 1 as well. Give me your thoughts on Teesside Steel, because it was another 8 points from a possible 12 unbeaten.
Yeah, Teesside Steel. It can be difficult sometimes. The Teesside PFC doing so well, but they've come alive. They've done so well, and they started in the Northeast Championship, and now they're here. battling at the top of the championship in the National League. They've got such quality, and again, Jamil Khan, we can kind of look at and say, Jamil Khan, he's got his history, but he's developed the players around him. Oscar Mulgrew, I think we were talking about yesterday, such quality that allows them and that allows them to keep the consistency that they've got by 14 games unbeaten. Thomas Mack, again, he's on the top goal scorers list. These are players that will help keep that consistency. Um, and we look at the last game week, a 10-0 win against Nottingham Forest, absolutely monumental. Bit of goal difference there. Um, and two draws on the Sunday. Perhaps they would have liked to get the win, but it was, you know, we we can talk about the quality of this league. Um, putting a challenge, putting a stop to that. But again, consistency, like we're saying, consistency rules this league, and they are very consistent at the minute. They're doing very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, there's not much to pick apart. They're averaging 2.17 goals per game, which is the second highest in the division. They've also kept 12 clean sheets, which is joint second in the division. So there isn't many weak points, and they've done that themselves through hard work and determination. And it's also worth highlighting is the consistency behind the scenes. They're one of the only teams across the entire National League who haven't made any changes. I think when you're looking at the Premiership, that statement can only be applied to Leeds Chariot, but they switched their coaching setup in the off-season, going from Paul Gorman to Russ Rigby. When you're referencing Teesside Steel, there was no changes. So the team that finished last season and coaching staff are what they're competing with in the 24-25 campaign. Something that stands out to me across football, and that's whatever the format, is that when things aren't necessarily going to plan, the go-to solution can often be to bring new players in. And that can be twofold. That can have an effect. On the one hand, it can inject fresh energy, new ideas, maybe a bit more quality. But on the other hand, it raises standards in the squad, giving them that little nudge if they feel their place is under threat. But what we're seeing with Teesside Steel, and similarly with Leeds Chariots, is a very different approach. They've kind of stuck with this consistent group, and what's come from that is cohesion, is understanding, and is growth. And you can see how much each of their 6 players have come on across the course of the season, not just individually, but as a team. They're so hard to beat, and 14 games unbeaten in a division that myself and Jack are saying is so competitive from top to bottom, and there being no guaranteed 3 points no matter where you look. That's come as a result of the trust and the chemistry they've established between them. So I'm really impressed. A credit to the players, the coaching staff, the culture they've created, and they've proved that sometimes backing the group you've got can be just as powerful as changing it. So, no, full credit to them. If we look at their players individually, and you can give your thoughts, Oscar Mulgrew, Jack, give me your opinion.
I'd say he's standout player of this season. He's done really well in that central position. In Powerchair Football, that central player plays such an important role. They are the person that, when it goes right, they do well, and when it doesn't go quite right, it doesn't. It's not too good. But Oscar has consistently done everything right. He's so difficult to play against in that middle. Um, we've played them both in the league and also in the North East League, and I can say they're a very good team. And trying to battle against Oscar in that middle, he can pivot the ball so fast, which can catch you out. And I think as well in this league, if you can pull the middle player out like they're doing with Oscar, it it can really cause problems. And when you play against them, you've got to be really, really disciplined. You can't go diving in because they will pounce on that. And the power that they can get through Jamil Khan out on the wings, and Thomas Mack's kind of ability to, literally put everything into the back of the net, it can be fantastic. And it's a fantastic they're a fantastic team, and it's a I imagine they'll go very, very far as a team.
Yeah, let me just touch on the players you've mentioned there. Oscar Mulgrew, for me, yeah, standout player of the division of the season. 16 goals, 11 assists, and in doing so, he's actually broken the club's single season record for goals scored. So yeah, in the centre, a driving force, and just producing levels that wouldn't be out of place in the Premiership. Right behind him, you referenced Jamil Khan, sitting on 14 assists, so 4 off Oscar Smedley in first. So he's right in that mix for the potential assist award, a new award that we're bringing into our end of season award ceremony. So he's that key creative presence for the team. He also featured in the team of the weekend alongside Oscar, who was of course voted the standout player, the first ever championship player to get consecutive player of the weekend accolades. So congratulations to him, and also again Teesside's coach Graham Mulgrew voted the coach of the weekend. So it just speaks to the level of performance across the whole group. You mentioned Thomas the Poacher Met. He of course deserves a mention. He scored 13 goals this season, which is more than his total from last season, which I know was his ultimate aspiration of surpassing 10 goals from 23-24. So it shows that individual progression, and that progression mirrors what we're seeing across the whole squad, because Isaac Murray, such an unsung hero for the way Teesside still play, but often goes under the radar because we're seeing these attacking outfield players really take the headlines. And Owen Swift on the Premiership podcast said just how impressed he's been with Teesside still and the consistency of them. And before the start of last season, they'd hardly ever trained together. So for them to take them levels and produce what we're seeing now, it's one that across a season now, if the season was to reset and we was to go again, they would arguably be title favourites, don't you think?
I'd agree. I think next if they don't manage to go up this season, I would 100% say title favourites next season. I have a feeling they will battle very well in the end of season playoff, and I feel like they will go up. But if they don't, definitely like you said, next season they'll be ones to watch. They'll be the top team, and the it's just the way they can take control of a game is so incredible. When you're playing against them, it can be so difficult to deal with. Um, and you've just got to give them so much credit for working on it and becoming that cohesive unit. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it would be unfair to say that the playoff position is theirs to lose, whilst Villa, Rockets, Lions have a game in hand over them and would mathematically leapfrog them in the standings. Once we get onto Villa and the context around potential player misses, I would definitely say Teesside still it's theirs to lose, and who knows what happens if you're referencing the 24-25 Premiership standings, and as mentioned, whoever finishes 10th would be the opponent of whoever finishes 3rd in the Championship. Currently, that's a position that's been jostled for by Middlesbrough, Nottinghamshire and Throssels. Is currently Nottinghamshire, but it could be any number of them, and based on current form, Teesside Steel will give them a real game. So we progress on to 4th in the Optegra Championship standings. Villa, Rockets, Lions, 17 games played. They have 33 points, 9 of which came from Gameweek 4. 3 wins and a loss, so an assured weekend with 2-0 win over City, 4-0 win over Bournemouth, 2-0 win over Dudley, and a very narrow defeat to GBG Knights. Very impressive. And even in that GBG Knights defeat, they went 1-0 up. And It was the experience of GBG that just proved the better of Villa in the end. But what they've got in their core group, I think they can compete with anyone. Give me your thoughts on Villa, Rockets, Lions, Jack.
Yeah, again, very consistent, a very good team. Some absolute quality in their squad. Um, I mean, you got to highlight Mason Hindley, who is again. We talk about the central player being such a strong, powerful player. When you've got Mason Hindley in your squad, he's such a great player and can take control of a game. It can be so difficult to play against players that can just control the game so well. Mason Hindley's definitely one of those players. Obviously, again, they've brought in Naglis Montvillas from overseas, and again, Naglis a fantastic addition to the team, um, providing some excellent quality. Sam Turner again, coming from Sale from last season. Sam Turner again adding some experience to the side. Sam's been playing for quite a while, and again, you look at the squad, they've got so much experience and so much skill as well, and so much quality, and that can really help them keep that consistency throughout the season. Um, I don't, with 9 points from all four games last weekend. Um, Maybe a bit disappointed against GBG. They perhaps could have got a point, but that's football, and they've done really well to get 9 points. Some difficult teams like Dudley. It's a difficult game, that one, but they came out on top, and they've done really well. So you've got to give them a lot of credit, and I can't wait to see where they go next season.
Yeah, to do no other players a disservice, I think a lot of their recent success has come down to the influence of Naglis Montvillas. Since joining, he's been involved in 85% of their games. He's competed in 9 games in the Optegra Championship this season and has 11 goals and 12 assists, which is just ridiculous. His impact is nothing short of transformational. He's brought creativity, control, and an end product in the final third. It's worth noting, Jack, that he won't be present, I believe, in game week 5 due to a clash with the Home Nation tournament taking place in Largs. So if that is the case, that is going to be a huge loss for a team hot in pursuit of that third place playoff. So one to keep in the back of your mind as we approach game week 5. You've mentioned a few individual performances and performers that deserve the spotlight. Mason Hindley, incredibly consistent, quietly going about his business, but always delivering. Nikki Baker brings experience. She's been a rock at the back, and you can see how important she's been in keeping those clean sheets that they have. Sam Turner, you've mentioned, adjusting to life as a wide winger, which is a big shift from the goalkeeper role he was playing at Sale. But his understanding of space and timing is improving week after week. And Dan Ball found his shooting form and rhythm in game week 4, a hat-trick against Bournemouth, one of the standout moments. So he's clearly thriving on the service provided by Naglis and Hindley behind him. And something else to consider, I think, especially when looking ahead to next season, is the role of those overseas players. So just competing in our National League at the moment, you've got 4 Republic of Ireland internationals: Naglis Montvillas, Liam Lynch, Sean Donaher, Thomas Donaher. You've got Torbjorn Krop competing for Greenbank, who's come over from Denmark. And you've got Ethan Galloway from Scotland competing for Middlesbrough. How have you found this influx of overseas international players coming into the divisions?
I think it can be it's so great to have that kind of caliber of players coming into the National League. Last year we had uh, Valentino Zagarelli come from Argentina, and this season we've got an influx of players that come over from international teams. And I think one of the things that is so great to see about international players is they sometimes will think about the game in a completely different way. The example I've got of this is from the 2023 Fit for World Cup. I remember when we were watching the US national team, And the way they did set pieces was unlike anything anybody had ever seen before. Nobody had thought to do a set piece like like they had. And it really, when you watch them play and you were watching teams go against it, they were going, what do we do here? So I think when you've got this influx of players that have different ideas and have different ways of playing the sport, when they come and, influence the game in England, it only betters the game. And when you can pick up ideas off them that you were like, oh, I've never even thought about doing that, or I've never even thought about, oh, let's run with the ball from a set piece or something. Let's try a different set piece routine. Um, you know that kind of when you get in those different perspectives and different outlooks on the sport, then you're going, oh, I could try this. I could try, I tried that. I think that's what's really incredible about getting players from overseas, and as well, they just add to the competition of the sport in this country. They just add to that, you know, we say Naglis Montvillas again, just adding to that caliber of players that Villa Rockets have, but also the league, and makes it that much more competitive when you go to watch it. So yeah, I think overseas players are absolutely vital and fantastic to the game. It just creates that different perspective and kind of a different outlook on the game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't think people quite grasp the considerations and the logistics that go around these players accessing competition in this country. So then there's a question around long-term commitment. So as a club, you can never necessarily be entirely sure whether those players will be available the following season if they help you with a promotion push or battling to maintain status in a specific division. But they are enriching the league, the culture, the different way of playing, the different methodologies and philosophies, and it's it's absolutely twofold. We're benefiting from the exposure and the influence and the new influx of eyes to our game in England, but they're benefiting massively when they prepare for the upcoming for Nations Cup in September. So Naglis, being the only overseas player in competing in the Championship, all eyes have been drawn on him. And a stat such as 85% of their goals have been a result of a Naglis goal or a Naglis assist shows just how good he is, and he's another that would not be out of place competing in the Premiership. So huge congratulations to him, but a thank you almost from me to say we are absolutely loving all of you coming over here, competing in the National League Premiership or Championship, and just keeping others on their toes. But
Yeah,
fantastic. Go on.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, yeah, it's kind of works both ways, doesn't it, as well? It kind of works in the reverse way. The level that we have, the level of Powerchair football we have in England, when players come over and they can take that level back to their, respective nation, it can be so powerful as well. So I feel like it's two ways as well, in terms of it's also helping us grow, but it's helping other teams and other countries grow. So I think that's incredible about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we will see the impact of Naglis in game week 5 because he won't be present. So let's see if Villa Rockets Lions can adapt to a source of creativity and goals that has been so key to their success and their rise up the standings. And as mentioned, if they win that game in hand, they will leapfrog Teesside in the standings, and assuming that they can match or better Teesside's results in their remaining games, they will secure that playoff position. In game week 5, they play Manchester United, Nottingham Forest, Hull, Leeds and GBG Knights. So some really winnable games, but also some tough games against yourself, Leeds Dynamos and GBG Knights, who will have ultimate aspirations of that title. So on the topic of Leeds Dynamos, we will progress onto them now. 5th in the standing, 17 games played, 28 points. It was a fantastic weekend with 12 points from a possible 15, just one blemish, but a loss against league leaders, Muscle Warriors, is far from disappointing. It was a big statement win over Sale United to kick things off, which I believe is the first time any team has beaten Sale by more than a single goal all season. So that alone set the tone for what turned out to be a sensational weekend. As one of their star players, Jack, you had a clear and immediate impact having missed game week 3. And that's not a coincidence that we saw them be so prolific in game week 4. How did it feel to be back out, firstly? And did you sense that shift in cohesion and confidence around the team?
It's honestly great to be back with game week 3. It was a bit of a disaster from me. Um, Literally, I think some people can relate to this on the night, just on the night before. Uh, we had some issues with transport and things like that, but um, great to be back. I'm so glad to be back playing football. It's when you miss a weekend, it can be so difficult um, to not be there and help out. And I know it's not just me. We've had a few injuries. I know that weekend we had Seb Copeland out due to a medical reason, and Hayden Lambert has had a bit of an injury this season, and it's cost us quite a bit. But we're back. We're back to it now. Hayden's back. Seb's back. I'm back, and the team's back to the full strength. Um, yeah, it can be quite difficult. Obviously, I've struggled with a bit of nerves as well, but we're 100% back now. I know that it was kind of last a couple of training sessions ago. I kind of got back into it, and I was like, yes, my mojo is back. I'm ready to play football properly again. But yeah, I think the confidence in the team is there. Obviously, the 12 points from 15. It was great to get that points and also give us that motivation and the confidence that we can continue to go on. I know that after the last weekend, we're a little bit down in the dumps because of it, but we we managed to get back on our feet and kind of open up with that for game week. On the first day, on the first day, 3 wins. And on the second day, just unfortunately against Muscle Warriors, and even in that game, just a couple of defensive errors from us really that caused the goals that we could stop. And again, it's something we can go back to training and continuously work on defending and things like that. I think the only thing I'd say is we need to shoot is the kind of bottom line. Sometimes we just need to shoot. There was a couple of times where it's like we just need to literally have a shot at goal, um, and just try because in this sport it can be so difficult sometimes when you're knocking on the door for 30 minutes or something, and you can think, oh, how do we score? We're not going to be able to score here, but literally just have a shot. It might take a bit of a rebound and it'll go in. And I think it's more confidence in the team to have those shots and have that confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to take this on now, or you know what, we need to take this down the line and just work it a little bit. I think that's where we need to work on that, and we're getting there, and it's in reality, it is a new team. It's only as Dynamos, we've been in the league for the past 3 seasons, and in the past two, we've had the squad that we've had with me and Seb Copeland, and Liam Chadwick and Reece Stewart. Um, Obviously, bringing on Jack McNaughton and Hayden Lambert has added to the squad depth and give us that ability. Hayden has got that great ability to drive the ball forward, and it got a great awareness. Jack McNaughton creates so much power, and we've seen it at the weekend from a couple of the goals that were scored. Jack McNaughton, the power he gets from set pieces, I think we say he's one of the best dead ball hitters, and he's very much so in training. We focus on taking the set pieces because he's got that power, he's got the intelligence to get it across the box. And it's so great to have a player like that on your team that can hit the ball that hard. And yeah, we've got the versatility as well. Try and play that middle position and hold that, hold the game, control the game. And it's about being disciplined as well. You can't go rushing in and expose the defense behind you. You've got to be really disciplined, especially against teams that can pass the ball very well, like your Teesside Steels and your Muscle Warriors. But then we've got kind of they can play quite passing and open football. And we've also got Liam Chadwick, who is fantastic at just closing the game down and getting on getting on players to stop the game, which we can manage games that way. We can, if it's in the 30th minute, we just want to close that game down and kind of manage it out if we're a couple of goals up. But I think we've got a very good squad, and the experience of Seb Copeland, he's very good at communicating. He's a very good team player. Um, both he gives us great skill in between the sticks, but then also when he comes out and goes forward, he's got the experience and that knowledge to be able to hit the ball. And when he's on his day, he can hit the ball excellently, and it's just exactly what we need.
No, really well said. Just to expand on a few of your points. Firstly, you said about potential nerves and issues with confidence. I'll say from the outside, your levels have been incredible this season, specifically you, and you've hit a new form, a new level, and I hope you acknowledge that internally, because had you not, your impact, obviously your absence in game week 3 was sorely missed, and we saw that amongst their results and their performances, and it's not a coincidence that we've seen them look calmer, look sharper, look more organised with you back in the fold. So commend your efforts specifically, and you said about kind of taking shots, taking chances. I think that's one of the areas where Dynamos have to do some work. They don't necessarily have that out-and-out prolific striker that some of the other top teams rely on. Jack McNaughton leads your scoring with 8 goals, which is a solid accumulation. But when you're comparing that to players hitting double figures elsewhere, it shows that there is a gap in that clinical edge, which I think alludes to what you was discussing. You have a +6 goal difference, which also reflects that lack of clinical edge, especially when you compare it to your T-sides, your GBGs, your Muscle Warriors, who are way into the +30s, 40s, and maybe even 50s in terms of goal difference. So it's definitely not a lack of quality. You've said that. It's about just taking chances and maybe turning those half chances into goals and developing that instinctive killer touch in the key moments. So, but you surely acknowledge that you create the opportunities. It's just maybe being a little bit more selfish and being a little bit more clinical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just need to, as a team, it's the creativity and just literally have a shot. I know we just need that finishing edge, that little tap at the back post door that, that's all it needs sometimes. And, we've seen that from a few goals at the weekend. If Jack McNaughton finds you from a sideline ball at the back post, it's literally a tapping against your chair. That's the kind of level. And we just need more of that ability to just take the ball or hold on to it for a second and just be a bit more creative and clinical in front of goal. We're something we are working on, and we're getting there, but it's something we need to focus on further to go forward into next season. We just need that clinical edge. I mean, last season, um, it was either last season or the season before. It was the season before. Apologies.
Ben
It was Ben
Robinson.
Robinson. Yeah, Ben
Yeah.
Robinson was that player that you literally could give him the ball and he would put it in the back of the net. And we Ben's been busy this year with university, so it's been hard for him to commit. Um,
It shows, I think, because one
yeah,
goal and 1 assist are far lower than most people expected. He was prolific in 22-23.
yeah, he's unfortunately been quite held up with university. But Ben Robinson, a player we solely miss when it comes to upfront finishing. He literally has the capability to put the ball in the back of the net and just it's literally what the final piece of the puzzle, I think, for us as a team.
It's a question I'd be curious to get your thoughts on, but with and referencing Leeds Dynamos, each of your 7 players have contributed, whether that's goal creation or goal scoring, which is an impressive feat in itself. Would you rather the squad share the load and the responsibility of goal scoring, or do you like having that poacher, that instinctive finisher within the squad? And I'm not saying that any of these players aren't capable of that. It just hasn't necessarily clicked this season.
Yeah, I think every player has areas that they do well, and every player has areas that we can improve on. Like we look at Jack McNaughton, and we can say he's great at hitting a dead ball. That's where you use certain players' skills and certain players, you know, their skill sets to impact. Um, I think as a team, we'll try and rotate and move around and try and do different things. Lewis Harris on the sidelines, he's great at kind of mixing it up and getting us to play in different positions and things like that, which can benefit us as players. And we do it in training all the time. We try different positions, try different things. But I think we do share that load. We share that. Um, you know, we might set up a goal. Hayden might pass it across or something, or we shoot or something like that. We get that as a team. We can do that, and we've got that, creativity. But I think when it comes to it, we need that kind of setup where it's kind of we need somebody to just put it in the back of the net. That's literally I think one of the skill sets we are missing of a team, and I think we can develop it. Obviously we talk about players coming in, quite new in terms of, it's their third season, second or third season. Reece Stewart came up last season before last to the Dynamos, and it's his second championship season. Again, he's got a new chair, and that can obviously cause some issues trying to get used to a new chair, and that can set back a little bit. But he he's getting there, and I think he will when he gets used to the chair, and we can train him up to literally sit at the back post and maybe tap him in. That's kind of what we need. And I think it's just it's again, we'll go back to the drawing board, we go back to training, we train quite hard. Lewis is great at coming up with things and giving us good ideas. So I think we'll you know get back into it, and we can just try and develop ourselves to be a bit more clinical and be a bit more dangerous almost.
Yeah, just to go back to what I was saying earlier about Teesside Steel and the fact that they're benefiting from that cohesive squad, and their passages of play, their success has no doubt come from the training court. So it perfectly aligns with what you're saying, and if you give these players more time, we will see them reap the rewards. I have no doubt. I think it's your season was really disrupted in game week 3. If you take that out of consideration, you're a challenger, and you could give anyone a game. And if you can keep that consistency and consistency levels that we saw across the entirety of game week 4, you may and will probably be in contention for the title next season. So I think it's really exciting times ahead. And it's just about developing those players, developing those instincts, because you're doing all the right stuff. It's just about putting the ball in the back of the net. And I think that's almost unfair to say, because whilst you haven't got a goal difference that's comparable to the likes of Villa, Teesside and GBG Knights, you've still scored 27 goals across your 17 games, which is far from disappointing.
Yeah, I think again, it can come down to we we I feel like we're getting a bit too as well. Kind of, mentally when you go into games, it can be quite difficult sometimes to be humble, I think. And I think we started the season quite, I'll be honest, we were a little bit maybe overconfident. And when you go and you've got to respect the opposition, you've got to say yes. We're going to give a good game. I think that's what's important. And I think it's been a real lesson learned throughout the season, and especially we talk about the quality in the championship this season. When you go into a game against someone who's at the bottom of the table, you've got to expect a challenge now. And I feel like we we need to give that respect a little bit and go, you know what, we're going to give everybody a game, because everybody is kind of there. And I think when we when we look at when we go back on the season, we're going to look at that and think, well, you know, we've just got to stay humble and play football, play our football. It doesn't really matter. We're just going to give everyone a good game and see what happens. But I think, yeah, like you said, 26 goals is not a disappointing amount. We're not disappointed with it. I think it's the goal difference and kind of different things like that make it seem worse than it is. So
Yeah.
when we go back and we analyze, we'll look at that and we'll go, well, we need to maybe just be a bit calmer, be a bit more collected, just play our football, and not really worry too much. I think if we can do that, I think that's kind of it cracked really.
No, a great weekend for you. One of the standout weekends of your entire season. So hopefully you can take that momentum into a very busy game week 5. You open against Manchester United before playing title challengers GBG Knights, and then games against Hull, Dudley, and Villa Rockets Lions. But I think it's safe to say that, well, mathematically, you're well safe of any form of jeopardy positions at the bottom, and you probably don't necessarily have what it takes to make up ground on the teams above you. So it's about playing without fear, maybe experimenting, find the best positions to accommodate all of your skill sets, and really going for it in game week 5, and then take that experience into the off season where you can prepare and come back stronger in the 25-26 campaign. So that brings us nicely onto Sale United, smack bang in the middle of our 12 team divisions. It was an impressive weekend for Sale United, 8 points from a possible 15. Things started with a disappointing defeat to yourselves, Leeds Dynamos, Jack, but from that they recovered really well. They held Manchester United to a 0-0 draw, seemed to cruise past AFC Bournemouth Warriors 5-0. They just about edged out Hull, and then they ended the weekend with an incredible 2-2 draw against Teesside Steel, which at face value doesn't sound all that impressive, but when you consider Teesside's form, you have to, and they was on a 13-game unbeaten run at that point, you have to just say how brilliant it was. Give me your thoughts on Sale United.
Yeah, so United, little fun fact, I in 2009 I was part of their open day when
Was you
when they first
really?
started. Yeah, that was back in the days of the Storms, and we literally would tape a bumper to the front of the NHS chairs, and I attended a few sessions there. Shortly after that, it was a bit of a fun. It was a bit far to travel to get to. For sale on a Thursday night, I think it was at the time. So we kind of stopped playing for a bit. But yeah, so United, um, going back to them in the present day, they are doing excellently, and their squad, um, the squad they've got is excellent. You know, the player that stands out to me, David D. He's featured in the team of the weekends and things like that. David D's been absolutely outstanding. I don't know, playing against him, fully in the Leeds Dynamos game, he put up a real challenge, and it was really difficult to deal with David in the middle, just because of how in control he is of the game. I'm going to continue to say this, but it's the players in the middle that can control the game, and David D certainly is one of those players that can control the game. And I think, such a young player as well, he's going to come through and be this extraordinary player. I can just see it. Um, but yeah, the squad that So United have with Jake Hudson, um, Joey Levine, and Jack Hassan, some players there that Jack Hassan, a great bit of experience. He's got a lot of experience. Jack, I believe Jack was there in 2009 as well. So he's been around for quite some time, but he's a great player. Um, and yeah, they like you said this weekend to you could so United previously in previous seasons they've maybe been towards the bottom of the championship, but they're doing very, very well. To draw against Teesside Steel, an excellent result. I'm sure they'll be very happy with that. And a 5-0 against Bournemouth. Um, I mean, it can be difficult as well. They've had a 5-game weekend, and 5 games. You get to the Sunday afternoon, and it's like you're just so tired. You want to go home, but they continue to challenge, and they continue to, you know, they didn't kind of lose that intensity. And although it was a 1-0 against Hull, not against Hull, apologies, it was against Teesside Steel, the latest game, to keep the intensity up again in that game, the last game of the weekend after playing 4 games, the fatigue can be there is incredible to see. And again, got to give them credit. They've done very, very well um, in this season, and a lot of the players are doing excellently.
Yeah, I get accused of favouritism from time to time following Powerchair Football so closely, and Sale United are definitely a team people associate me with. I don't know how it's got to that point, but many who follow this league closely surely know why I align with them. I'm so impressed with them. The quality of football, the tactical improvements, the energy they bring, it's all several levels above where it was a couple of seasons ago. And I could be wrong here, but I think this might be the first time we're ever previewing Sale United on this podcast before Manchester United. So whether or not it's happened before, in terms of a National League standing, I think this is the first time Sale United have ever been above Manchester United. Manchester United were in the Premiership last season, so obviously there's been a huge discrepancy with regards to quality and level that they compete at. So if that is the case, I know that will please them greatly, but it's a testament to the development of the squad, the fact that they're really challenging their sister club Manchester United now. On the topic of David D, who you spotlighted, one thing I want to really highlight is his understanding of the game. We sat down together to record the recap of Gameweek 3 of the Championship, and bearing in mind he's just 14 years of age, it was clear straight away when we was having a conversation how deeply he understands the sport and how Powerchair Football mad he is. The way he reads matches, analyses situations and thinks about what is happening on the court way before it happens is years beyond his years. And that level of intelligence absolutely shows in the way he plays. Calm, creative, and always a few steps ahead. He is the heartbeat of the side. 7 goals, 8 assists. And as you've already mentioned, the consistency has been outstanding. To be present in every single team of the weekend is and will surely see him be in contention for accolades at the end of season awards. So fantastic player. And on the topic of end of season awards, that will open at the conclusion of Game Week 5. So we'll include player, young player, coach, team and fantasy team of the season. And that young player, the category, includes all players aged 18 and under at the start of the campaign on September 7th, 2024. So David will, of course, be in consideration, but there's 29 in total that are now eligible. So plenty of names to watch across that final weekend. Alongside David, Jack Hassan offers energy, attacking drive. You spoke about the balance of experience and youth earlier, Jack, and how players can really use them as role models and leaders. I think Jack Hassan and Jake Hudson do that so well to offer that leadership, and also it would be impossible not to mention Mason Davies as well. When I did the Game Week 3 podcast with David, he tipped Mason to potentially go on and become an England international in the future, which is a very bold statement for a player of 12 years of age who's not long been in the sport, just finding his feet. This was only his 3rd ever weekend competing in the National League Championship. And from my point of view, watching so much football, not just across the Premiership and Championship, but also major competitions around the world, I've got a really good sense of the levels required to compete with the very best. And having watched Mason a few times in the National League, despite him being only 12 years old, it's clear that there is a sensational young player with an exciting future ahead. I had also had the pleasure of coaching him recently on the FA's Regional Emergent Talent Programme, which gave me almost a fresh perspective, not only on his game, but his character and his application. He was the first one to arrive, which just shows which shows willingness and how determined he is to keep improving. And that's everything you want to see from a young player at that stage of the development. So I echo what David said. The things that Mason is doing at his age, his experience level, are incredible. But I will, of course, always say that with caution. It's important not to pile pressure and or expectation on him too early. But if what we have seen so far is a sign of things to come, it's really, really exciting, don't you think, Jack?
Absolutely. Again, two young players there, David D and Mason. Mason Davies, that are really showing signs of promise, and it can really give that such a emphasis on that team. I mean, we look at young players coming through, like Dan McClellan in the England setup. When you've got players like Dan coming through so young, and David D and Mason Davis, that quality is coming through so young now. And I think part of it's down to maybe people can watch the games and go back and analyze. David's probably got that. Um, intelligence from maybe
And I know he
watching the
does.
best.
I
Yeah.
know he does constantly.
So, and I think that can really help when, developing as a player. You can go back and review and say, oh, this player at the top does this. I might try and implement that in my own game. And I think, and as well in this sport, the sport's so special in the fact that it is quite a mental game. And, while we're all pretty much on the same level when it comes to the chairs, everybody goes pretty much the same speed, you know, and everybody's got pretty much the same chair, that it's literally the mental battles that make players, that actually make players. And that's what I think so amazing about this sport. Um, when you go back and analyze, the little technical details are so important, and the fact that David's able to pick that up so young, I think means that he's going to be such an incredible player going forward. He's got that awareness that it isn't just about just hitting a football. It's about the little techniques and the little things that you can do in this sport. I think as well, the other amazing thing is that, and this actually quite fascinated me when I first started in the National League scene, was you look at players like at the top, like your Chris Gordons and your John Baldens, these people that you'll see on TV and on BT Sports playing on in tournaments, and you see them, and you actually go to a National League weekend, and you can actually meet these people, and that's so special because in the running game, a lot of people idolize Ronaldo and Messi and things like that, but you'll
Not
never,
accessible, is he?
yeah, you're never actually gonna. It's going to be very, very unlikely that you'll have a conversation with that person and things like that. But with this sport, your John Bolden, your Chris Gordon, you people at the top. You go to a Premiership weekend and you can talk to them about, oh, how did you do that? Or do how do you, have you got any tricks for this and things like that? And I think that makes this sport so good. And I think for the players coming through, it's vital. It's vital, and it's so important that you can be able to watch and analyze like David's doing, but also use the talent and the experience of other players. From even within your own squad. We talk about Jack Hassan with quite a bit of experience, but even externally, when you go on the regional pathways and potentially even national emerging talent pathways, and you'll have conversations, you'll have games against these amazing players at the top. It can really give you that. Um, Motivation, and the value, you can get the value from them, and that's and it will improve your game massively. So I think that's the game, the beauty of the game, really. And I think you know David David D realizes that, and I think will continue to impress in the coming up seasons.
No, I echo all of that. And just on that point about accessibility of these role models, of these leaders, it goes back to what I was saying about a large cohort of the current England internationals being coaches and teaching and guiding the next generation. So it's so important. It's a big, thriving ecosystem, but you have to see it to be it. And you're seeing these young players be able to meet your John Boldins, your Chris Gordons, your Marcus Harrisons, and aspire to be that. And players like David and Mason would have almost gone straight into strike forces or bullets or equalisers, so these sport-specific chairs. So you're right to highlight the fact that it is on that mental intelligence to get up to the pace to compete with players that are 2-3 times their age, with 2-3 times their experience. Just before we progress on from Sale, I just want to also shout out Sam Turner. He may not be involved with the club anymore, having moved to Villa Rockets Lions, but he has played such a vital role in Sale's story. As player coach, he helped guide them through some of their toughest years, including seasons that started with points deductions and setbacks. And what we're seeing now in the collective and these individual players has been years of patience, coaching and culture building, and that credit belongs just as much to those who laid the foundations as those who are finishing it now. So a huge shout out to Sam Turner, and on back onto Sale. It's, can they finish in the top 6? Can they finish above Manchester United, their close rivals? They've played a game more than the teams immediately around them, so based on how close it is in that middle pack, they will need results to go in their favour if they are to secure it. But overall, it has been a phenomenal season for them, and I hope they just go out in game week 5 and enjoy it. I know that they're so ambitious, they're so driven, so they'll want to end on the season on a high. They play GBG Knights, Dudley, Manchester City and Nottingham Forest, 3 opponents of which that they have bragging rights over. So it could be a really exciting end to the season, and if they could easily break past 30 points.
Yeah.
So, 7th in the 2024-25 Optegra Championship is Manchester United, locked on the exact same number of points as Sale United, but with an inferior goal difference. It was a mixed game week 4 for United, but one that still shows plenty of resilience. They opened with a win over Manchester City. They held title-chasing GBG Knights to a 0-0 draw, and they also shut out Sale United, who we've already spotlighted as being so impressive. They'll be really disappointed with that narrow defeat to Nottingham Forest. Goal scoring has been their clear challenge this season. Just 16 goals in their 17 matches, the 5th lowest in the division. But they're in a position defensively where they're really strong, so it can slightly compensate for that lack of proficiency up top. They've got 10 clean sheets, which gives them nearly a 60% shutout rate. So while they may not score freely, they make themselves very hard to beat. Give me your thoughts on Manchester United, Jack.
Yeah, again, we just need to score a few. We played them at the start of the season, and it was a 0-0 game. And you look at the games on the Saturday of the last weekend, 0-0, 0-0, and it's a lack of scoring, I think, that's really causing them problems. They just need they need that poacher, that finisher, just to score the goals. They've got the talent. Shannon Smith, and a player that's got a great CV in terms of previous clubs, playing for Manchester United and previous kind of seasons. And Kieran Burns as well, a player that can really, really hold it in the middle of the park, and play that vital role as the player that controls the game, and the power that he can get. And he's on the ball, he's fantastic, and he do so well. And I know that Kieran really wants to play that kind of passing football, and you can see it in the way they play. Shannon and Kieran link up quite well to create that kind of passing movement. I think with them, it's again just they need that person just to tap it in, and maybe just work it a bit more. Get it moving a bit more, be a bit more clinical. Um, but I think you look at the you look at the games, and it's just that's literally, I think they're finishing the final bit. They're defending well. Maybe a few unlucky goals. Nottingham Forest obviously scored against them to win that game, but they're defensively quite strong, and they just need to literally probably focus on at training, maybe just for an hour, just have shots at goal, and just work on that, being clinical, being brave in front of goal.
Yeah, I think they're going to need that if they're going to want to push up the division and be in conversations for promotion and all the playoffs. So it's clear that the defensive strength remains their identity. Holding GBG Knights to a 0-0 draw, and I think that's only the second time this season GBG have failed to score, which in itself is a brilliant achievement. So they're compact, they're disciplined under pressure, which is a really hard thing to do, which I'm sure you can attest, because keeping clean sheets is far from a formality. But I think this is a side that will benefit from stability and cohesion. So keeping this group together, maybe looking to add in the off-season. It's always difficult when you've got sister clubs paired to one another. You often see a lot of switches and changes at season's end. I think Joey Levine recently moved from Sale United to Manchester United in that January transfer window, and since joining himself, he has been a solid presence at the back. Impact that he's had has had a clear difference, alongside the fairly noticeable leadership of Kieran Burns. He's kept them competitive. So it's about channeling that, and as you've already mentioned, the goal scoring has been difficult. Shannon Smith deserves credit. She's now matched Sam Taylor as their top goal scorer, but only on 5 goals. But for her individually, that's her best return since the 2018-19 season, where she finished on 8 goals. So maybe a target for her to aim towards in game week 5 in bettering that. She also has 6 assists, meaning she's hit double figures for goal contributions. So she had a really good game week 4. Her goals were very crucial to reversing the scoreline against Manchester City. So she can show composure and experience when it matters most. If we look forward to game week 5, as mentioned, they have a game in hand over their sister club Sale United. They open against yourselves, Jack, 9:30 on Saturday morning. The last time you played one another, it was 0-0. So no doubt you'll both be wanting to have bragging rights following that one. And then it's games against Villa Rockets Lions, AFC Bournemouth Warriors, Muscle Warriors, and West Bromwich Albion Dudley. So a real mixed bag. But knowing them, knowing their players, knowing their ambitions, they'll want to end the season on a high and reset in the off-season, ready to go again next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe Man United just, they can start focusing on next season, and that push for next season. I think they will do very well. Again, we are mentioning Kieran Burns, Shannon Smith, Sam Taylor. These players are really, really, they've got a lot of quality there and a lot of experience. And with Joey Levine coming in, it's great, because that's what they can focus on that, and they can build on that for next season. They're going to be a really strong force to contend with next season.
No, I have no doubt about that. So I'll be very excited to see what they look like and how they perform. So, 8th in the standings, we have West Bromwich Albion Dudley. They sit a point behind Manchester United with 25 points. I think it was a real mix of highs and lows in game week 4. A brilliant Saturday with convincing wins over AFC Bournemouth Warriors 3-1 and Hull 3-0. Were followed by 2 narrow defeats on Sunday to 2 of the league's most in-form sides, Villa Rockets and Muscle Warriors, so far from disappointing. What has come clear to me is the more time the group spends together under the guidance of Dave Lewis and Matt Gilbert, the better they're getting. There's a real identity beginning to form, strong, physical, organised, and with every game, I think they look more cohesive. Jack, give me your thoughts on West Bromwich Albion, Dudley.
I had to admit, uh, I'd have thought they'd been higher up in the table this season. I know in recent years they've done very, very well, but no, like you said, they've got a good unit of players and very, 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 very qualified coaching staff with Dave Lewis and Matt Gilbert, both who have played at England international level and Premiership level as well. Um, Both of them really can pass that on to their players, pass their skill and their knowledge on, and like we say, the kind of the the kind of setup they've got there, and the players they can really do well together, and like you said, they're becoming more cohesive each weekend and weekend. Um, if we look at there was a stat I was trying to find before, I can't remember what it was. You have to just bear with me.
That's
Never
fine.
mind.
Just while you're doing that, I just want to echo that it's a similar situation to that of Leeds Dynamos, how they're not reliant on any one single player for the goals. I think all of their 8 players have contributed with either a goal or an assist, and I think finding that balance is sometimes challenging, but they're seeming to capitalise on it. The top of them charts is Jack Westmoreland and Keane Collins, who have both scored 6 goals apiece, with Jack also having 8 assists, showing just how influential he's been since he was moved to that central, almost play-making role. And his form earned him a deserved position at that, in Team of the Weekend. So you can see how he's grown in confidence every appearance he has. So it's really exciting. I think they're missing Jack Gorder, who's been out for the past few weekends following surgery. He's a player I rate really highly. Calm, clever, always seems to read the game 2 steps ahead, and I can't wait to see him back, because in the 23-24 campaign, the chemistry and the connection that he had established with Jack Westmoreland was really promising. So a lot to look forward to. And just before I pass back over to you, Jack, if you've got your stat, I want to quickly correct myself on something I may have mentioned in a former episode when it comes to Laura Evans. She opened her account in 24-25 with a brace against Bournemouth, which were her first 2 goals of the season. In the early episode, I believe I had said that Anne-Marie Robertson was the first female Scottish player, to compete and score in our National League. But that is a statistic and stat that's very much owed and owned by Laura Evans, because in the last few weeks, she has been called up to train with the Scotland national team. I believe she was born in Scotland, so that would make her the first ever female Scottish player to score and compete in the National League. So congratulations to her. Without putting too much pressure on the situation, I think her ability, her leadership, her presence could be a huge addition for Scotland. Without going into too much detail, I know it's been an incredibly difficult year for the country, losing some incredible players and personalities. And while I don't know the full picture around selection for either the Home Nations or the Epfor Nations Cup in September, I really hope Laura is included, because what a story that would be, and what a coup for the Scotland national team.
Absolutely, Laura has got that presence. I know playing against Dudley, Laura has that presence on the pitch, and you really do feel that presence when you play against Dudley. And as a team, it can be quite almost a little bit off-putting when you've got a player of that presence on court. So I think that's an amazing asset they've got. The stat I was going to mention before was they've scored 1.4 goals per game, which is kind of the 5th highest, but it kind of doesn't reflect where they are in the table. If they've got that kind of finishing up front with, like you say, Jack Westmoreland and players like that, it doesn't really reflect them as a team where they are in the table. And I think that they'll be obviously disappointed at where they maybe are, but I think what they can't be disappointed is how well they're playing, and they're kind of as a unit how well they're doing together. And I think that will only, continue to grow throughout next season and seasons beyond. They do so well together, and I think you look at the stats and things like that, and they're clearly showing promise. And I think they will get there in the end if they keep going.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think, as you've said, in terms of chance creation and goal scoring, 29 goals they've scored across their 18 games, which is a record that's matched by Villa Rockets Lions. When we're talking about Villa Rockets Lions competing at the very top, looking to grasp onto that playoff position, for Dudley to have scored the same amount of goals of them, but there be 4 or 5 positions between them, it shows that the conversation, the question isn't around the attacking output, it's about their defensive stability. So conceding 27 goals with only a +2 goal difference in their favour shows how fine the margins are between attack and defence. So if they can work on that defensive stability and create a foundation for their attacking players to thrive upon, they will be a real force. I have no doubt. We've seen it with Muscle Warriors. In seasons gone by, they've been in and competing at a similar level to Dudley, and their goals scored are typically cancelled out by goals conceded. But they brought in Hannah Hindley, and you've seen that shift. I'm not saying that they should look to bring in a player from elsewhere, but if they can train a player up to be that presence in defence, that vocal leader, to organise, to orchestrate, there's no reason why they can't go on to challenge for playoffs, for automatic promotion. And for that, I give a lot of credit to their coaching setup, for which I have complete faith in. I think Dave Lewis, brilliant manager. I've coached alongside him on the Regional Emergent Talent Programme, and I can tell you firsthand how impactful he is and inspirational he is to the young players. So a lot of energy, a lot of intent. I've already spotlighted Jack Gorder, who will no doubt be back for the start of next season. So for me, team to watch in the 25-26 campaign.
Yeah, I think, like you said, they need that kind of defensive, uh, player that's going to control, control and take control defensively. And I can see Laura Evans being that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a new team. It's new, new teams take time to gel. Some teams, it's just people, isn't it? If some teams can gel really quickly, some teams can take a bit. And I think if you give that team time, Laura Evans can really grow into that role of being that player that just really takes command and defends very, very well. And I think also, like you said, training with Scotland will also give her that edge of training with the best in Scotland and getting to that extra training. And I'm pretty sure next season we will see definitely a shift between them conceding and scoring, where they will, they will score more goals than they concede. So I can see that definitely happening.
Yeah, I really hope Laura is called up to represent Scotland, whether that's Home Nations or the Nations Cup, because without question, she has the quality to compete at that level. And just on Dudley as a whole, I think the real dilemma for Dave and Matt this season has been managing that squad of 8, which can be really challenging. Trialing players in different positions, trying to find the best formula, the best starting four. But a season of experience for them will benefit them greatly. And I still think they're trying to figure out the best lineup, which isn't an easy thing to figure out when you've got 8 players, 8 versatile players that can operate in different positions. So one for them to figure out in the off-season, and for them to come back even bigger and better in the 25-26 campaign. So, well done to West Bromwich Albion Dudley. Next in the Optegra Championship standings, in 9th with 12 points to their name. So they've got Dudley in 8th have a 13-point buffer over the team below them. So no threat of any jeopardy positions at the bottom. We have Hull and East Yorkshire. Gameweek 4, very much a tale of two halves for Hull. They opened with arguably their best result of the season, a dominant 5-1 win over AFC Bournemouth Warriors, and that was also followed by a sensational 0-0 draw against league leaders Muscle Warriors, a side that's rarely been held to scoreless scorelines all year. So that level of performance shows that Hull, on their day, are more than capable of mixing it with the best. However, they were unable to carry that momentum through to Sunday, falling to back-to-back defeats, a tough 3-0 loss to West Bromwich Albion Dudley, and a narrow 1-0 defeat to Sale United. But a weekend that began with promise, ended in frustration, but a lot of positives still to take. Jack, give me your thoughts on Hull.
Yeah, it's been a difficult one for them, hasn't it? I know they've lost players last year to different clubs. Obviously, um, Paul Simpson went to Newcastle United, Foundation PSC, and Hayden Lambert has come to us. So, and Hayden, and Paul, both fantastic players, and both offer such attacking threat. I think it's been a big loss for them. They need to find, I think, that player that will come into the game and take control and be that player that stands out. Um, they will need to find that player that can take control of the game and be that dominant force in the middle. And I think if they find that, they'll find a lot of their results will be uh, not as one-sided as they have been this season. But I mean, we know they've got the quality. We look at the Bournemouth result and they won 5-1. We know they've got the quality there. They've got the ability to play well and score goals. It's just, I think, maybe they need that confidence and that, swagger into bigger teams where they can go in and say, you know what, we deserve to be here and we're going to play, we're going to block you, we're going to stop you from scoring. And I think they did that again. We can see that there's glimmers of this coming through when they did that against Muscle Warriors. They that's a big result for them. And I'd say that if they're not, they should be happy about that result. I know 0-0. They could have won the game and things like that, but a 0-0 result for where you are in the league, if you look at the league positions, it's a fantastic result. They've done really well there. It's caused some mayhem at the top with who's going, could GBG do it, get the title? But it's a great result, and I think it's showing the glimmers of where they want to be next, which I can no doubt they'll be there maybe next season or the season after, where they can find themselves and find themselves as a squad, and they can build that and be that force that you know be where they were, you know, after taking a bit of a knock of some players leaving. But yeah, I think if they continue to focus on just becoming their own identity and becoming the team that that they once were, I think they'll do excellent.
Yeah, I think some people might glance at the league table and be quick to judge, especially as Hull were coming down from the Premiership last season. But for me, this is not a disappointing campaign in the slightest. It's a transitional season and one that's laying the foundation for something even bigger and better next season. The performances are improving and the belief is building. And from a development perspective, there's so much to be excited about. I recently had the chance to work with Harrison Smith and Callum Jefferson on the RETP. The first time I'd seen them up close, and honestly, they were brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, committed, coachable, full of potential. And they're part of a wider group now in that northeast that's just really talented and wanting to develop and drive forward. So a lot of positives on that sense. And you have to add further context, another layer, in the fact that Hull are in transition. Aston Wolves were brought in from Nottingham Forest, as well as Harry and Callum competing in their first ever season of competitive Powerchair football. So while Aston is adapting to a new team, a new role, a new system, you've also got this young blood learning the intricacies and the competitiveness of the Championship division, which can be intimidating and can take years to get used to. They've also been rotating Kai Gill into different positions, trying to find that balance, and that takes time. But as seen in the results, it's exciting. And also one of the standout moments I have to mention is Luke Brennan. Obviously, he's been at Hull since their inception. I wouldn't even be able to tell you when they were formed as a club. But in Gameweek 4, he matched Cole Simpson as Hull's all-time top goal scorer on 41. So considering how pivotal Cole Simpson was to Hull and their rise up the divisions in previous years, that's a massive milestone for Luke and a testament to his consistency over the long term. So I hope for them they take the positives, they disregard the negatives, because there's very few once you apply the context. And away from the court, Hull continue to be a credit to the sport, to the division. Their work in marketing, in communications, in partnerships are genuinely trailblazing, showing that real innovation in how Powerchair football clubs can operate, can promote themselves and attract support and partners outside of our ecosystem. So, no, really impressed with them. Gameweek 5 sees them play Nottingham Forest, Leeds Dynamos, Villa Rockets Lions and Teesside Steel. So some tough fixtures to contest. There's still a potential for not relegation because the playoff situation in the Championship is dictated by how many teams state a preference to come up. They'll want to, if and where possible, ensure that they finish top of that pack. And at the moment, you'd say they're favourites to do so, both from a goal scoring and point accumulation basis. But who knows what can happen. Manchester City and Nottingham Forest could pick up a real string of results and put a bit more pressure on Hull and East Yorkshire. So one for them to be wary of, but one that I think that they'll be just about safe from.
I agree with that, yeah. I think they don't need to really worry about relegation. I think if it maybe comes to it, but I feel like their focus mainly will be on rebuilding. Like you said, some great young players that are coming through, and also Aston Walls, bit of experience in there can really help them rebuild and kind of get to get to where they want to be, and I think get their identity back as the team that were at the top half of the Championship table.
Absolutely. So, next in the standings, we have Manchester City in 10th, 18 games played, 11 points to their name, minus 25 when you're looking at that goal difference. It was a tough weekend, a really tough weekend for Manchester City, who left with no points from a demanding run of fixtures. But as is often the case, the results don't tell the full story with the side. City remain the youngest squad in the division, and what they're doing on the court far exceeds expectation based on experience alone. So I have to give them full credit. Jack, you're very closely affiliated to Manchester City. Give me your thoughts, not just on Game Week 4, but on their season as a whole, because their developments they're exhibiting compared to last season, based on the experience of the players, is really impressive.
Yeah, I think the thing with the National League is I've been there with Northwest Bees in 2000, the 2019-2020 season, was that you can come into this division and you really think, everybody's in, strike force chairs and things like that, and the quality that the league it has, and it has been for for many years now. You can come up and it's almost overwhelming, the skill that everybody brings that all the teams bring. And I remember we were losing in our first season. There was games that were 10-0. We were losing because we'd never played at this level before. We were a new team. We were gelling, and there was a lot to work out. And I think it's it's really important to almost put it into perspective and say it's a process, and it takes a while to acclimatise. And Manchester City have done excellently with it. If we look at where they were when they first joined the league, there were many, many, many big defeats. And now if we look at the last weekend's results, there's the biggest probably loss was a 3-0 against GBG Knights, which, although you could say it's a loss, it's 3-0 against quite a second in the table to defend like that and defend to be able to stop them from scoring is part of the process. And I think they're definitely a team to watch. Man City, they've got a lot of players that are very young players, like we say, coming through. Um, some players like Jay Pixton in between the sticks, very good at taking that ball forward and causing a stir forward. He's very good on the ball. James Simpson, another player that I keep saying a very one to watch. James Simpson, he's got a lot of potential. I know James used to play for Bolton many. I think it was at the time the Northwest Bees was happening, and James has always showed that potential. He's got a very good understanding of the game, and going into a challenge with James, he really puts a fight up. Um, Players like Kareem Kareem Ali, great player out wide. Um, it's it's quite funny. I actually think they have more Manchester United fans at Manchester City than Manchester City fans, which is an
every
interesting.
time, every time I see Jay, it's seeing him with his Manchester United cushion propping him up, and I can only think that if Tottenham ever had a Powerchair Football side and a player had something Arsenal on them, it would make my skin crawl.
I know I've had many conversations with Lucas Weather O'Brien, wears Manchester City shirt, and he's like, "Oh, I'm only wearing this because I have to." But no, some great players there, great young players coming through. Lucas Weather O'Brien, he's got great skill set. I think um, Serban Oscar Spink, again, some players that are really there controlling the game in the middle. We keep saying this about middle players that can control that game. I think they are both players that can really take command. And Stephen Miller Whittaker, who brings experience from Bolton and Northwest Bees. Stephen's had many seasons of experience, and I'm sure that he can bring that experience to the side, and kind of give it to the younger players. But Manchester City, I think they've done very well, and I think in their success, they've done quite. They do things quite unorthodox sometimes, and I think it can take. I mean, we 1-0. We only won by one goal, and we only won by one in the cup game that we played against them as well. And I think it's credit to them that they defend so well. I mean, it's almost an unconventional approach because they don't sometimes they don't mark the edge of the area, and it gives you a bit of space. But it's an unconventional approach because your team sort of go, oh, I need to. What do I do here? I've got no pressure. I've got all the time. But I think they also set up on the line with both players side on, and it's very unconventional, but I think it works for them. And I think maybe with some tweaks and some modifications to the setup, I think it could become very, quite a good setup for them. But I think they've really come alive this season. They've really shown. I know, obviously, at the bottom of the table, I know a lot of them will have desires to go up the table, but they do so well, and you know to kind of keep the heads up every time. And you know, it was a 5 game weekend last weekend, and their last game was the GBG Knights game. It's very difficult. The 5 game weekends can really be quite difficult as a player. And I think for them to keep the heads up and keep going, it's incredible to see. And I think that's also sums up their season. They keep going and they keep battling. And I think eventually they will get to a point where they do well and they will be mid-table or even challenging at the top. But I think it just takes time. And I think as they continue to progress and seasons continue to roll by, they will get there. Um, but they do very well.
Yeah, just to touch on a few of your points, commend the efforts of James Simpson and Kareem Ali. Continue to be reliable sources of goals and attacking intent. The positions they put themselves in are really promising, and once they unlock that connection and chemistry and the defence connects with the attack, they'll get a real string of service and will no doubt benefit from it. The Spink twins, Sebastian and Oscar, always catch the eye. Sebastian's Mr. 180, as I've dubbed him, due to the prevalence of 180 shots he attempts. He's progressing so well, And while I'm yet to find a nickname for Oscar, both have shown a real hunger to learn, which is really promising. They both, alongside Jay, recently attended the RETP for the first time, so I had the pleasure of spending some real time with them. And I can say without hesitation, all three of them are Powerchair Football mad. When it comes to the twins, they would like to connect with the twin tuition, I think they dub it. And for that, I'd like to see them get more minutes together on the court. I know Man City experiment and shift things up a fair bit, but there is a clear chemistry between them. There is a twin telepathy there, so something to consider. And on Jay Pixton, you highlighted him straight away. He is so technically gifted, tactically aware, and he absorbs information like a sponge. I'd almost challenge Man City and Jay to be braver in attack, or maybe call on his versatility to help them up the court, because whilst we know how defensively solid he is, there's a skill set there that will only aid their performance in attack as well. So one to watch, most definitely. And I think taking a step back, looking at City at a whole, it's so evident how much they care, how invested they are in this journey. And it's almost too much. I think they put a lot of pressure on themselves, and sometimes that can cloud the bigger picture. But when you strip it back and you look at the levels of experience and what they've achieved so far, it's without question they've surpassed every possible development metric for where they are as a team. You look at the improvements from 23-24 in terms of points, in terms of goals, in terms of clean sheets, and they're the things you can quantify. It's the intangibles, the game understanding, the structure, the positional discipline, the teamwork, the attitude, the application that are evolving at rapid rate. And I don't think they necessarily see that. They're so drawn to their placement and their goal scored and their point accumulations that they sometimes can disregard how far they've developed as a collective. So for me, if I'm giving advice, it's saying have a singular focus. Focus on the games in front of you, not the table, not the potential playoff situation they may find themselves within, just the fixtures themselves. And then at the end of the season, regroup, assess the next stage, the next step, the next fixture, because this team has all of the makings of a serious force in the years to come. And if they do find themselves in that championship playoff, which I know they don't want, I say to them, embrace it. And I would have them being competitive against any team that comes up. Own the moment and show everyone why you are regarded by myself, I'm sure you, Jack, and others, as one of the most exciting Powerchair football projects in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. They get, they've had a lot of support from the city and the community, with the, with all the equalisers and things they've bought for them. And it's incredible to see them continue and push on. And I think, like you said, it's very exciting to see where they will end up. And I think eventually they will get to a point where they can challenge, challenge mid-table and things like that. But like you said, I wouldn't worry about. I'd tell them not to worry about relegation, because I believe they can own it, they can do it. It's just that they need to focus on where do they go and what do they focus on and what do they see as their objective next season. But yeah, I think very exciting team, definitely a one to watch going forward.
If we look at game week 5 for Manchester City, it's tough viewing. 3 games against Teesside Steel, Muscle Warriors and Sale United, all looking to end the season on a high, will be difficult to contest. Their final game of the season, however, falls against AFC Bournemouth Warriors, who sit on just 4 points from their 18 games. So we could see it come down to the very last game of the season that deems them either safe or drawn into that playoff situation. So it's going to be really exciting, and I hope they just enjoy it, they embrace it, and observe and acknowledge how far that they've progressed as a team. So the penultimate team in the 12-team division, sitting in 11th, is Nottingham Forest. 18 games played. They are locked on the same number of points as Manchester City in 10th, but they have an inferior goal difference on minus 31. So let's assess game week 4. There's no denying that it started in fairly brutal fashion for Forest with a heavy 10-0 defeat to Teesside Steel. But what followed, I think, deserves real credit. They could be forgiven if they dropped their heads and took them nerves and that frustration from that 10-0 defeat into following games, but they didn't. And I'm sure you can speak, having been one of their opponents in game week 4. Give me your thoughts on Nottingham Forest, because I think they share a lot of similar traits to that of Manchester City. A young, hungry, developing squad that's finding their feet in the division, but one with a really exciting future.
Yeah, yeah. That's they are such an exciting team, that I think have done very well this season, and I think it's unfair where they are in the table in terms of the level of progression that they're showing. Although it was a big loss against Teesside Steel, and I think you do in a game get to the point where it can be quite frustrating when you're losing 5, 6, 7, and then it goes on to 10. But I think they did well to write that game off and go into Man City, 0-0. Maybe a bit gutted they didn't get a goal there, but to beat Manchester United on the Sunday, a great win, and I think they'll be looking at that, thinking that's fantastic, and it's a great kind of stepping stone for them to build, and it's a great thing to show that they are building as a team. You know, I'll be honest, playing against them, they're doing very well, and it was almost a bit surprising when it's kind of like they're a lot more difficult of a team than they have been previously. They were putting up a fight. I mean, the game that we had was a very, very interesting game. It was I believe it was one of the last games on the Sunday in the afternoon. I think, well, the last game. Very, very interesting game. They are a very strong side, and I think opponents, with no disrespect to Nottingham Forest, you can potentially go into the game and not respect them enough. And I think that's, you know, they've come on and they're doing very well, and they're earning a lot of respect now, I think, and it's very, very uh, difficult going into a game against them because they're doing very well now, and the level that they're playing at it's unfortunate that they are as low in the league as they are because they are doing very, very well. And I mean, even in the game against us, it was 0-0. It was 1-1, just up to the 40th minute where we got a late winner. They did very well to hold us back from scoring. And I think that's again just shows the quality that they can get. And again, the ability to, if you have a game and you lose 10-0, you can almost feel, where do we go from here? That was a big loss and things like that. But they didn't. They carried on going. They kind of, it was they got going again. They got in their rhythms and they, went on to draw against Man City and beat Man United, which two very good results. It's a shame they, taking my Leeds hat off for a minute, they could have got another point against us, against Leeds Dynamos. They could have done. They, they did give us quite a big challenge, and I think that's their beauty as a team. They're doing so well, and I think they will continue to grow as a side that will continue to develop. And I can't wait to see where they go.
Yeah, I mean, if you offered them 4 points from a possible 12, considering their opposition prior to the weekend taking place, I think they would have absolutely snapped your hand off. So that needs credit. And the fact that despite that opening match, Forest were competitive across every other game of the weekend, which is a true testament to their character, that they didn't let that define their entire game week. And just like City, their league position doesn't reflect the progression that the team has made and the performances and the togetherness of the squad. And it's such fine margins, as you've said, how close they were to getting a point against Leeds, a team that has aspirations much higher in the standings and table than that of Nottingham Forest. So the question now is how they channel that positivity, that energy, that momentum into game week 5, because they'll need it. Because Manchester City currently ahead on goal difference, so Forest will not only need to better City's results, but they'll need to swing the goal difference by at least 6 goals if they want to avoid falling into that Championship playoff spot. But regardless of what happens in Game Week 5, the foundations have been laid for something promising. Their identity is forming, their players are developing, and the club is moving in the right direction, even if the table doesn't tell that full story. And just spotlighting some of their individual players, Ben Rodgers, absolutely brilliant young player, 3 goals, 3 assists across the season. He was voted the unsung hero of the weekend for the role he played in that success, securing those 3 points. And I think he's starting to get that Powerchair Football bug when we're talking about David D being obsessed, going away, watching Powerchair Football. I think Ben Rodgers is got the same. We had him on the RETP, as well as Finlay Cooper and Riley Priestley. Finlay Cooper, I got to say, I absolutely love him. He is such a nice person and a player who's obsessed with getting better, improving his strengths to compensate for his weaknesses. Another one to watch in the years to come. And Riley Priestley was also on the RETP, and rather remarkably, still only has 7 goals, which if you look at face value, you think 7 goals is not bad. But all of those goals came in one game, in game week 1. So it's something I've challenged him to change in game week 5. But these are players with high ceilings, and Forest have done really well to create a platform where that talent can shine, don't you think?
I completely agree. Going back to what you said, Ben Rodgers, I'd say, again, one to watch personally. He, against us, he was an incredible player, and he was so difficult to play against. And I think, he's, again, we talk about middle players and the players that can control the game. Continues to say it like a broken record, but he he is that player for them, and I think he will continue to develop and be that player that can be. He's the control freak in the middle. That's like, yes, we we're going to pass the ball and play what the football we want to play. Um, so I think he's an excellent player, and like you said, Riley Priestley and Finlay Cooper, 2 great players that very passionate about the game, and will, you know, a great unit with Ben Rodgers. Gary Meakin as well. A good shout out to Gary because he's a great bit of experience they've got on the side, and another good player that they can utilise at certain intervals during the game. But yeah, Nottingham Forest. It's a shame where they are, but it's really unfortunate. But they do so well, and I think it's incredible to see.
No, I completely agree, and it goes back to what you said at the start of the episode, how there's quality in this division from top to bottom, no matter where you look, and the fact that we're talking about a team in 11th with only 11 points to their name across their 18 games, and we're talking about individuals and moments and matches that aren't out of place anywhere in the Championship division. Securing a double over Manchester United is historic. I remember when we recapped, I think game week 2, when they secured that 2-1 win over Manchester United in the presence of Stuart Pearce as being historic, a historic moment for the club, and how they've now built on that, and to secure another win over them could be so crucial for their point accumulation and their confidence. So when you look at it on paper, game week 5 arguably potentially more favourable than Man City's. They play Hull, Villa, GBG Knights and Sale. But something that I'm always challenged on is talking about games on paper and favourable fixture lists, because as spoken about for well over 2 hours now, Jack and I continue to say that nothing's a formality, nothing's straightforward. There's no easy 3 points in this division. So hopefully they can take confidence from that and take the game to one of Hull, Villa, GBG. We progress onto the final team in the 12-team division, AFC Bournemouth Warriors, with 4 points from their 18 games. It was another incredibly tough weekend for the side, and in truth, it's been a really tough season overall. But what stands out to me more than results is the character and the commitment. Week after week, they continue to show up, they compete and give their all, and that deserves huge credit. And at this point of the season, the question becomes, what does success look like? For Bournemouth, it's about finishing strong, continue to grow as a unit and finding the positives in the process. And with such a young, developing group, progress doesn't always have to show up in the results, in the placement, in the goals scored. It could be about understanding roles, about communication and confidence under pressure. So realistically, based on the current standings, Bournemouth will feature in the Championship playoffs on June 14th, assuming they have an interest in competing in the National League still. So they would need 3 wins in Gameweek 5, and for both Manchester City and or Nottingham Forest to finish with no points, just to climb off the bottom. And even then, they'd also need to overcome a significant goal difference swing. So let's assume they want to compete in the National League next season, maybe planning towards that playoff to ensure that they are present next season, because they add a lot of value to this league, don't you think, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. Bournemouth, a team that's been the highs of the highs and the lows. A bit of the lows at the minute. They've been in the Premiership. They've unfortunately, it's unfortunate where they are at the minute, but they've got some amazing players. I mean, one player I'm going to highlight, Chris King. His passion for Powerchair Football, he's second to none, and I know he gets involved with Bournemouth quite a lot, and it's so incredible to see that the passion that Chris has for football and Powerchair Football, to extend that. He's very difficult to play against on the court. He's a very very good player. And he's got a lot of skill there and a lot of experience as well. I believe he was part of the Premiership side, but he's a player that is continuously impressing. And yeah, I think and again, Bournemouth again, they've got a good side with Adam Sevenoaks and things like that. Brian Skinner as well. These are players that have got a good track record, and I think it's just where they are at the minute. It's a shame where they are, but I think rebuilding the summer and kind of rethink and kind of almost bit of training, a bit more training, and things like that. And I believe that they will be challenging a little bit more next season. But it's just again, I think it's just one of the things. It's this season. If they rebuild over the summer, they kind of have a reprioritization between them. I think they'll be a fantastic side.
Yeah, if they do take part in that playoffs, I think it should be seen as an opportunity, a fresh start, a chance to show how far they've come in a season where they've faced nothing but challenges. But regardless of the outcome, they've shown they belong, I think. And I think Chris King epitomises that. What a player, what a person. They're standout in terms of the attacking presence this season, leading the scoring charts with 6. And you said Adam Sevenoaks, he's another that I want to give credit. Plays with passion, plays with heart, and constantly gives everything regardless of the scoreline. And that sort of mindset, I think, really matters more than the quantifiables, the leagues, the points, etc. So a tough weekend in game week 5 whereby they play Muscle Warriors, Manchester United, Teesside Steel and Manchester City. So it's not favourable, but assuming that they want to be present next season and they're accepting their fate with regards to a playoff, go out and enjoy it and finish the season on a high, because I think they're everyone's favourite team to support beyond obviously affiliations, because of that heart, because of that determination and that togetherness.
Yeah, I think it's important as a team when they can do that and be together. Um, but like, I think, against the teams, they go out on that last weekend, have fun, enjoy it. I mean, the last game on the Sunday, Manchester City, um, is going to be a very interesting one, and that's one where they can really, you know, try and maybe focus on that game and try and get the win. I mean, even against Man United, they could try a little bit, but I think against the other teams, I think it's just have fun and and just enjoy that last weekend, and then, like you said, fresh start, at the playoffs and next season, and they can go again. But form a really favourable team.
No, I think that caps that off nicely. So thank you to everyone that listened to this episode of the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football podcast, powered by MK Battery. We'll be back, no doubt, with another episode soon. But until then, thank you all. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be on.